Okay, team, we're going to be going through the May wrap-up. It's a little bit earlier in the month of May as I'm filming it because I've got to take off on a trip here shortly, but I'm going to go through and talk you through some of the results that we had, late April, early May so far. I'm going to be trying to do this moving forward is wrapping up the month that was and giving you guys some case studies around, what has sold and things along those lines, average volume through properties and stuff like that. Today, I'm just basically reading from our success list and giving you the circumstances, whether it sold before auction, on the day, or after auction. And again, in the future, probably do a better job of talking about some of the ones that didn't sell as well so that we can talk about, good, bad, and different and what happened in those circumstances. But either way, hopefully you enjoy just a little bit more information on this short episode to just take you through some of the case studies that we've got going on at the moment all around the country. Thanks so much. Welcome to Rethink Real Estate. My name is Ben Brady, and this is a real estate podcast aimed to deliver sales strategies, marketing tips, and business insights from industry experts and myself to build a listing-focused business for the future. Let's get into it. So this is going to be the first episode where we roll through some case studies. I'm just going to run through some of the properties that we've gone through in the month of May and give you a bit of a breakdown, a bit of a case study on them. As you can appreciate, as we go through this, I want to try and do this each month where we go through and I give you a bit of an update on some of the situations and what's happening and giving you some case studies so that you can see those. I'll give you some property addresses as well, the agent circumstances. This one's probably going to be a little bit raw, and as it's our first one and I get involved in the format, I'd love some feedback from people of what you'd like to hear. But let's just run through and give you a bit of an update on some of the things happening. If those that are watching on YouTube, apologies not making eye contact with the camera, I'm just going to be looking down so I can get a lot of this right. I want to go through the good, the bad, and the indifferent also here. I think that I want to talk about definitely I want to talk about the ones that didn't sell at auction and sold shortly after or didn't sell after. Again, I'm not going to sugarcoat this at all. If the agent didn't do a good job, I'm going to talk about that. And apologies for anybody that I offend and don't do an auction because I'm telling you the truth. Apologies about that. But realistically, we'll talk about the good as well. But and talk about some of the ones that we're coming up that you should definitely watch also. But again, I'm filming this towards the end of May, so it's not exactly on that because I have to go away to Australia here shortly, is that I'm just filming a little bit early, but let me go through and let me talk about what's going on with a couple of these properties that sold. So first property that I want to talk about is a pretty difficult sale property in Matterhorn Court in Crestline. Okay, so this is in California. The Green Group, Justin and Chad, the listing agents on it, bidding to start from on that property was $385 and the property sold for $459,000. So $385 bidding to start from $459,000. Talking about this situation, had been on and off the marketplace with two other agents. Now, the situation of this was interesting, actually. The sellers would have accepted a lot less, okay, than what the property was originally listed for. I believe the property was listed somewhere in the vicinity of, I'm going to say $560,000. Keep in mind, it sold for $559,000. Now, that property did not sell for over 6 months. And when we spoke to the sellers, I remember speaking to them when the deal was happening because Justin actually listed this property on his own. They were like, "Oh, we would accept way less," but the agents never asked them what they would accept. The agents, both of the agents, just asked or just told them this is what the property is worth. Isn't that a learning in its own right? Again, I'm not trying to say we undersold the property. Okay, you may think that it was originally listed at $560,000 and we sold it for $460,000. But realistically, it was never worth that. We were able to get it done within a really short period of time prior to auction. Somebody came in that was looking at it previously, said, "Hey, we've had our eye on this. We really like it," because it was bidding to start from at $385. Their first offer was at $400. They increased upon themselves a few times because they didn't know what was going to happen on auction date. Again, I'll try and keep these relatively short. Next property is a property in, I'm going to say a few of these names wrong, so sorry, Calais Clara Vista in Newbury Park. Okay, Steve Simmons was the listing agent on that one. Now, that property was bidding to start from at $1 million. The non-disclosed reserve on this was 1.2. It ended up selling traditionally. Okay, it ended up selling traditionally for $1,180,000. This is after auction, a pretty substantial time after auction, about 3 weeks. But I think one of the things that I definitely would point out in this one, and Steve is very open about this. We had a conversation with his first auction with us ever, and And he really was very attentive to the process. But one of the things that he definitely did was defend the price. And we got some offers through the auction process. It went to the market, knew it wasn't on the marketplace previously, even to the point that I believe we got $1,160,000 prior to auction day. But then a lot of the other interest was lower. He obviously ended up selling it for a little bit more, but the carry costs that the sellers would have had to pay anyway would have definitely superseded that. But the thing that happened is that Steve didn't believe the market when it showed up either. Maybe a bit of a position of overpromising a little bit in the beginning. So he didn't want to go back and fall on the sword too much. He didn't believe the auction process because it was his first, and then put it on the marketplace for $1,225,000 traditionally and got nothing for a long time. And then managed to get somebody through that, again, eventually ended up, $1,185,000, I believe. This is what it sold for. Now we've got another one with David Buck in Hawaii. This property here, interestingly enough, this one here was a really quick turnaround. It was just one of those ones that hit the marketplace, had been on the marketplace previously, hit the marketplace, and was a bidding to start from at $1 million. 1.3 was the reserve price. We got an offer straight away at $1,200,000. I think it was $1,220,000. Then we got it to $1,250,000, and then $1,300,000. Again, none of that. No, the one thing that I want to mention in the counteroffer process of that, there was no counteroffer. This is one of the big mistakes that a lot of agents make, is they will counteroffer, and then the buyer will just say no. The buyers, if they saw 1.3 straight away or 1.325 or whatever it is, the sellers would have probably wanted to counter above their non-disclosed reserve of 1.3, which would have scared them away. We had to incrementally get them to come up, and it was simple. It was like, hey guys, that's not enough to stop the auction. Let's get you registered to bid. Oh, I don't want to go to auction. We'll resubmit an offer at a higher level. That was a pretty easy one, to be honest, and Dave did a wonderful job. He's a pretty seasoned pro when it comes to that. Here's one here that I'll talk about, Lakeshore Avenue. This is more of a commercial income property. We had two of these properties at 1868 Lakeshore Avenue in LA, and then we had 1872 Lakeshore Avenue in LA. So this property, Steve Dempster and Mendy were the listing agents on this. Again, they did a really remarkable job here, because one of them, the 1868, had loads of interest in it. But the thing that is there's a consortium of owners. So it was a dissolved situation where they're obviously going through and liquidating a portfolio in the family trust. There were a few trustees of this. They were obviously getting the benefactors of that. And there was 3 or 4 people that were pretty delusional about value because they wanted a certain amount of money out of it. And there were others that were just like, well, hang on, no, let's listen to the market. So this was great in order for them to see it with their own 2 eyes. The actual live auction itself, we had, I believe it was 7 or 8 registered bidders. We ended up getting it up on the day. Let me just check here. Bidding to start from was at 700. The end sale price was $1,125,000. Now, their original expectation, the reserve was $1.3 million. We asked them to set that high based on some of the other interests, but then we were able to present a whole lot of offers prior to auction. Obviously, a great volume of people. The live auction itself, them watching it, allowed everybody to feel the clarity that it was given its absolute best shot, and $1,125,000 the sale price. So bidding to start from 700, selling for 1,125. Again, that was a really good situation. And then the other one, 1872. This property here had far less interest. $1.5 million was the bidding to start from price on that property itself. Okay. We ended up selling it at 1,710. Now, we went through the first round of auction. We only got the bidding up to about 1.6 million. So the sellers chose not to sell it. Instead of putting a list price on it because no one could come to the agreement, they were going to put a list price on this property of 1.9 million, which was far too high based on the feedback. So our advice was, instead of putting that traditional list price on it to kill the momentum, let's take it through another round of auction. We took it through another round of auction, and one of the bidders, the bidder at 1.6, ended up coming up to $1,710,000 because they didn't want to go through the auction process again. That would have been a situation where that buyer would have walked away if we put $1,900,000 on that property as a traditional list price. Let's keep going here. Don Engel had one, Corte Playa Corona, and that one there. That sold after auction. We got it to, this was a situation where we actually got the bid on the day of auction to $1,160,000. The seller said yes to it. And the buyer actually backed out in the last minute. Now, there is some legal proceedings that are going on with that because they lost some money on it and all of this type of stuff. The buyer did because of the auction process itself. So either way, we ended up reselling it for a higher amount, and that was through traditional afterwards. This one here was a really good situation of the auction day being able to get the seller to C market willing to accept less. So we priced it effectively traditionally after when it didn't go through at the auction in the negotiations right there. And then it got more after in a really short period of time. This seller would have priced that property at well in excess of 1.2 million, which it would have gotten no momentum at all. So within just a couple of weeks, we were able to get that price so effectively and get that result. And that seller was going to, well, they were going to price it at, I think it was at 1,250,000 or 1,225,000 from memory. So again, just gave that opportunity of momentum to get an understanding of what the market's willing to pay, instead of going through that incremental change of down with the traditional sale. I'll go outside of California for a moment. We've got a few here in Tennessee and Florida. A property at Inverness. This is with Mackenzie Hyde from Scout Realty there over in Nashville. They're doing a great job at the moment through a whole bunch of auctions. This was a property that was in not the greatest shape. From a perspective of it needed to probably be completely regutted and done. Now, this is a situation where at auction we were able to get $1,070,000, I think it was, but then immediately after auction, it wasn't enough for the auction to be stopped, but immediately after we end up getting $1,075,000, and it spent a little bit of time on the market where it sort of slowed down a little bit, and the sellers sort of like, oh, let's take that right now, because their expectations were around 1.1-ish. But they were open to accepting that and moving on. Another property was on the marketplace for a very, very long time in Miami. This is Northeast 62nd Street in Miami, Florida. Elizabeth Menez is the listing agent on that one. That one sold there for $300,000. A bidding to start from at $250,000. It just was a matter of just getting a few more people through the door to see the potential of the property. Another one in Florida. This is Joe Batag. And Joe, this was one he had on the marketplace for so long. Had no showings on it at all. We turned it into an auction and we had put bidding to start from at 300 and then immediately had such a high volume of people on it. He actually got an offer prior to that was completely non-contingent over his non-disclosed reserve at 360 that he just wanted to take. It would have been a pretty competitive auction, but he was in a position where he just wanted to take it. He was agent and he was also an investor on the property also. Another one at Elmwood Avenue there in Nashville. This is one with Mackenzie Hyde again as well. Bidding to start from at $899. We sold it for $987,500. That was prior to auction. Property in Florida, in another one in Florida, Hollywood, Florida, North 35th Street. Now, this is a great story. The original founder of real estate company down in Hollywood sold it to Douglas Elliman. Now, this was a little while back now. He had the property on the marketplace traditionally, I believe it was for 4 months. He'd remodeled it and just had it on the marketplace. Wasn't able to get a result. It was previously listed. At $2.1 million. We put a bidding to start from at $1.8 million. We got so many more people through the front door of it. We actually accepted an offer prior to auction at $2,150, so above that as well. So that was a really good result also. But again, guys, we've got a few more examples that I could definitely give to you, but that's a good example of some of the case studies that we've got there at the moment. And again, you guys can go through, you can look them up, you can check it out. But also we've got some really big high price properties as well that are coming down the pipe for the month of June, which are pretty exciting. We've currently got a $7.5 million bidding to start from land opportunity just north of Austin. We've got a bidding to start from $6 million now also. And that property is in Florida. The listing agent on that one is Fabio. Let me just actually, that's a good idea. I might just take you guys through that one because that's a cool property that you can definitely look at from an area perspective. Fabio's property is 4800 Bay Point Road in Miami, Florida. Bidding to start from on that one is $6 million. We've already got a fair bit of interest on that property. We don't expect it to get all the way to auction date. The auction date on that one is coming up here at May 30th, but again, who knows? That might actually accept an offer prior to auction, or there might be some registered interest on that as well. A couple of other ones to note as well. I've got 8 townhomes in Nashville. These are income properties at the moment where someone could buy all 8 together, and they're short-term rentals. And that one there, we're auctioning them all off collectively, and this is going to be coming up here on the 16th of May. and then we're going to auction them individually as well. We've got a few more in Nashville. We've got a few more in San Francisco. We've got a few more in South Miami. We've got also some good stuff coming up. We've got one in Corvallis in Oregon as well, bidding to start from $3 million. We've got one in Rancho Santa Fe for bidding to start from $8 million, and a few other ones as well around the $2 million mark in Yorba Linda, Simi Valley, Vista. So again, there's a few things going on everywhere at the moment, guys. Tennessee, Florida, Hawaii, Southern California, Oregon. We've got a few coming up in Washington as well. So hopefully this has given you a little bit of an insight to some of the success that we've had in the month of May. I look forward to taking you through some more towards at the beginning of July for the June month as well. That's what we're going to try and do, is we're going to try and wrap it all up and summarize it, and give you guys a little bit more insight into the business so that you can have a look at those case studies. If you need any more information, let us know. Happy to send anything over to you guys if you did need it or wanted to explore it further. Thanks so much. So about 75% of our audience hasn't liked, followed, or subscribed to our podcast. It would mean the world to us, and it would help this podcast more than you know to expand our reach if you were to like, follow, or subscribe on any of the platforms that you're watching or listening on. Thanks again.